What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one I wanted to talk about what happened with the Robotaxi event, give you guys my initial reaction, not to mention what's happening to Tesla share prices are down almost 7% after it, as we didn't really get the Model 2 and things were a little bit different from what some investors were expecting. Just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Weeble link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. And deposit $25,000 more, you're guaranteed 75. The offering's in just about a little bit under 3 weeks from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about Tesla. So Tesla's share price has gapped down. I said to everyone, depending on how the Robotaxi event goes, Tesla will either gap up and start pushing to the 250s, close to 260, 20 points, or we would go from 240 all the way down to the 220s if Tesla ended up dumping. And the answer is Tesla ended up dumping because it didn't really announce everything that some investors were expecting, but it was still a great event. So, what happened? Tesla basically announced their very, very cool looking Cybercab. It has only two doors, it has four wheels, and it's designed to work as the Robotaxi. Now, this is awesome and all, but one thing you have to remember is that this doesn't have a steering wheel and it's going to need a lot of approval to really be released and such. Now, many investors were hoping that Tesla would announce a Model 2, which is an under $25,000 EV that could compete with like a lot of Chinese price wars and stuff like that. But Tesla does not seem to be kind of like doing that. It's more like they're just going to be going all in on the Cybercab instead. But this is great. It's very bullish for the long term. I'm very excited for its future. But the thing you have to remember is that, in today's world, this isn't approved yet. There's a lot of regulatory approvals that have to be, put through. There's a lot they have to do to get this to work. So there's a lot that has to be done, at least thus far. I think it's bullish for the long term. But the issue is it's going to take time for us to really get it. Musk was saying that it could be coming before 2027. We know his dates are not always perfect. So that's the honest truth, guys. His dates are not always perfect. And Tesla has to give it as much time as possible. At least they need more time to really give us more specific details. Musk is saying hopefully before 2027. And then also by next year, there should be the potential for Tesla to be fully autonomous for some of their models, at least in California and Texas. So very, very cool stuff. So very, very awesome in my personal opinion. It's also going to be using inductive charging for the Cybercab. As far as Optimus goes, there's been a lot of talk about its own capabilities. And then they also announced the RoboVan, which is cool in itself, but we didn't get too many details about it. About 20 people could basically sit in it. Besides that, unsupervised FSD should be coming out by next year in Texas and California. Very, very awesome in my opinion. It's no surprise those are going to be the two main regions. So, what is my view of the events? Honestly, it's bullish for Tesla's long term. I'm going to go back up to this image just to show you uh, you know, the, the Robotaxi. But you know, I have to remind everyone that there are a lot of risks involved in this. And what I mean by that is it's awesome, it's bullish, but this depends on can they get everything approved by, within like 2.5 years. Can they get everything that they need to get done? Will they achieve this by a particular date? There's a lot that goes into this. It's not like they're just going to be ready just like that and everything's going to be easy. And then on top of that, like I said before, many investors were looking for. So we got the RoboVan, which is awesome. The Cybercab is great. Optimus is awesome, but that's pretty much all they showed us. They just unveiled this new EV. Many investors were hoping that they would have a more affordable EV that could be. So what I was thinking, what I was hoping for, is that there would be like a Model 2 that could be driven by humans, and then it would eventually incorporate full self-driving technology as well, kind of like a Model 3. Many people were hoping that that would be the case, would be a lot more affordable, but that's not what we ended up getting. That's still okay. But this basically means that Tesla's essentially just going all in on uh, basically cars, making their cars self-driving. Essentially, they're going all in on that. They're investing a lot into it, and that's what their big bet is. Many investors may have not been hoping that it would come out like this, but I think it was still a great event. Very, very cool what Tesla's doing. There's still a lot of work that has to be done for us to understand every detail about this and to see all the necessary approvals, but it still is bullish. It's very, very bullish for the long term. Very excited for what the future holds for Tesla. Despite the fact that we didn't have a new Model 2, that's why the share price has been dipping. This is also kind of like a buy the rumor, sell the news event. So because we didn't get the new Model 2 and things didn't go that way, they didn't really go that route. And because Tesla's now investing so much into the Cybercab instead, and they're kind of going all in on that, that's why the share price is dropping instead. So we could see a little bit more downside, unfortunately, but the long term is still very bright for this event. When it comes to other factors, today is Friday, October 11th, 2024. An hour before open, we just got PPI. This was at 0%. This is not bad. That's as we expected, a little bit below expectations. PPI for year over year was at 1.8%, a little bit above expectations, but still below what we saw previously. Core PPI month over month was as expected, so everything was close to expectations. But the only thing was that core PPI year over year was at 2.8%, a little bit above expectations, not affecting the market as much. There's still buyers stepping in. At 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report and the Inflationary Expectations Report, so we'll have to see how things end up going. Look for some volatility 30 minutes after market open. We had big bank earnings. Wells Fargo's shares are up because they beat expectations. They beat on EPS. They beat on revenue. And on top of this, their guidance was not bad. So pretty good guidance and a nice increase in net interest income. Their EPS was above what we expected, and they did relatively well. On top of this, BlackRock, the share price is up as well. This is another big earnings that came out. This is what's helping the market hold up despite PPI not being that great. BlackRock did relatively well. They beat on Q3 projections. Revenues up 15%. EPS revenue were both, I believe, beats for them, and their assets under management are up to about over $11 trillion. So not bad. They beat. In my personal opinion, I think revenue was a little short, but EPS was a nice beat, and their guidance was pretty good. That's the reason why BlackRock is up. And then we have JP Morgan Chase. Just to double check this, earnings per share was a beat at $4.37. Revenue was at $43.32 billion above expectations. Profits were a little bit more like thin, but not bad. And then when it comes to what they're expecting, they raised their full year guidance, which is bullish. So that's why the share price is up for them. So good earnings overall, at least on paper. This is being reported, despite their profits getting a little bit tighter for some of these banks. Not bad. SPY's max pain is currently at about 569 a share. We do have a 3.36 puts to call ratio. We have over 800,000 puts expiring and about 240,000 of these calls expiring. So the majority of positions are in puts. So we'll see how things go. With that being said, let's talk about the share prices for all these different companies. Tesla's looking more bearish, unfortunately. We'll see if we can try to reclaim 225. If that's reclaimed, we could be going back up to this resistance around 227. If we can't reclaim at least 225 to 227, those resistance areas, we're at risk of coming all the way down to about 220 flat. If that does not hold, I think that we're going to be on our way to fill this gap, which could take us all the way down to like 211. So there could be a big dump coming to Tesla the next couple of days. This typically happens after their events, and like I said, I was hoping that they would announce a Model 2 on top of the Cybercab. So if they had the Cybercab and they also had a Model 2, the more affordable EV that could be sold and kind of compete in China, that would be bullish. But they didn't announce that they're going a lot more in on the Cybercab instead. So, it's great. It's very, very great for the long term, but there's still a lot of work that has to be done. And that was not what a lot of investors were really hoping for. That would wow them. This was no surprise whatsoever. So that's why the share price is down. So we're just going to be taking it for what it is. We could be getting closer to about 220. If it doesn't hold, we have that gap to fill all the way down closer to about the 211 area. So be careful, guys. Tesla's a little bit more bearish. For SPY, as far as SPY goes, we're near all-time highs, but look at 577 as a tough resistance. We have not been able to crack past the all-time high yet. And if we reject here, we're looking for 574.2 as our main support, followed by 571.4. Those are going to be your two main supports. So if we lose 575, look for 574, then 571 is our two targets. If we break and hold above 575, we're looking for a big rebound for 577. If we get above 577.5, we could get closer to about 580. But either way, it's a tough resistance between 577 and 580, so be careful as we're at all-time highs. And we'll see if this dips a little bit. We are looking a little bit weaker on the 4-hour, so it could pop a little bit as we open, but look for a potential test of 574. It might dip a little bit. The same thing could be said about ES. we have basically 50, excuse me, 58.40 is our resistance. If we lose 58.13, we could be dipping back down to 57.93. I see a risk that this might dip a little bit to at least the lower 5800 area, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But there are some signs the market's starting to slow down. If we look at other stocks out there, such as Nvda pushed to 135. We'll see if we hold above that. If we break that, we could get closer to 136 than 140. If you reject and we don't hold above 135, we're at risk of dipping down to 131, basically. So we'll have to see how things end up going. So be very, very patient nonetheless. For Bitcoin, we're trying to push. We could be pushing for basically 61,729. If this rejects, we could be dipping lower. So look for a little bit more upside, especially if you have this imbalance towards 62,300, and then we'll see if we reject or not. For others out there, we have NQ. NQ had this resistance around 20,400. We're looking for 20,336 as our support, followed by 20,250. So we could be dipping a little bit lower. I think 20,225 could be tested on NQ if we end up losing that support. For the QQQ, so we push this resistance all the way up here around this 494 area. 494 to 500 is a tough resistance. We need to try to break that to turn back up. It's still possible we do that next week, but right now I'm seeing the risk of us testing 489, so be mindful of that. For Apple is kind of consolidating. We have 230 as a tough resistance. If it breaks 230, we're looking for basically 232. If we reject, we're looking for 227.5. There is a risk of it dipping closer to like 227.5. Might hit 230 first, consolidate, and then maybe dip a little bit. So be very mindful of that. For the IWM, we're range bound. If we lose 215, we're more bearish. We could be dipping closer to 212. If we break past 217, we're more bullish. This might just completely trade south, but there is a risk of us dipping a little bit lower. Amazon's trying to push higher. We're looking for basically 188 as resistance. If that breaks, we're looking for basically the 190 area. If we lose 185, we're looking for a dip back down to 183. But this, in my opinion, is still looking decent. Look for a test of 188. We'll see if you reject or not. Might push a little bit more. Meta is at risk of dipping. We're losing our 20 EMA. We need to reclaim 587. If not, we're at risk of coming down to 578. So look for a test of 586. If we break 587, we could turn back up. If not, we're going to be dipping down to 578. Microsoft is kind of hitting resistance here around 416. If that rejects, we could be dipping to about 410 all over again. And then for Google, we're also rejecting our resistance. If we don't reclaim 165, we're at risk of dipping down to like 160. So keep that in mind. All right, that's a quick recap of what happened with the the Robotaxi event. And we'll be watching these levels very carefully. I thank you all so much for listening. Just know Tesla's kind of weak, guys. There is a risk of it dipping lower, so please be mindful of that. Tesla had a good event. The event was still good. It was still very bullish for the long term, but it didn't really give us everything that investors were looking for. So it is what it is, guys. We just have to continue and just know there is a risk of some downside for Tesla. I'll be back in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, thank you for listening and peace out.